Hello and welcome back to the Transfer Flow, and on today's episode, we are talking the Madrid Derby. What did Xabi Alonso get wrong as he set his team up to face their local rivals? Then we look at the Premier League relegation battle. Are Sunderland safe already? How worried should Villa be? And how can Nuno try to fix this misshapen West Ham squad? Then we look at Tottenham's open play concerns, Arsenal's stylistic shift, and Liverpool's dodgy defence. That's all on today's episode of the Transfer Flow. So we've got a special treat for you this Monday. Ted is away, having a little holiday. And so, stepping in, coming over from the Wednesday edition of the podcast, we've got Neel. How are you doing, Neel?
I'm very good, Patrick. I'm not sure how many people will think of this as a treat, but look, here we are. So, you got to deal with it.
That's how we should start every podcast with. Here I am. You've got to deal with it. Which actually, weirdly, a lot of people do not seem to be very happy to deal with the content that we bring them. People seem to be very, very angry recently about what we're bringing them. But we're hoping we can correct that today. We're going to talk about a big European game to start off the show. And we're going to talk about the relegation battle, which features a third of the teams in the division and a bunch of teams who admittedly probably do not get enough attention from us. But we're going to try and focus on them a little bit more. We have to start, though, in Spain with the Madrid Derby. It was interestingly poised because obviously what we've said over the last few weeks is Atleti's numbers look fine, but the results on the pitch have not been up to it. And of course, they had that battering against Liverpool. Real Madrid, on the other hand, have looked extremely impressive and like they're adapting quite nicely to the way that Xabi Alonso wants them to play. So, of course, Xabi Alonso decided, let's play completely differently away at Atletico Madrid. And they came out in this game, it was shockingly passive, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was such a weird performance from Real Madrid, in all respects. I mean, we'll get into it, but let me first start with another fun fact. So, Patrick, this was Atleti's biggest derby win for a fair while. Since when? When do you think they last won by 3 or more goals against Real Madrid?
Okay, so I saw something.
I saw this.
But I thought it was about the number of goals that they scored. I thought I saw the thing that said the last time they scored 5 was 1950.
Right, that's my second question.
Okay, but the last time they won by 3.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it wasn't that far back.
Sure, but when were they last really, really good before this iteration? The mid 70s? Maybe sometime around 70.
You've gone way too far back. It was 2015.
It was 2015?
Yeah, they scored 4. It was 4-0 win. Among the start, I mean, obviously Diego Simeone was their coach. Ancelotti was the Real Madrid coach. And among the starters were Koke, Antoine Griezmann, and Dani Carvajal. And yeah, then I was going to ask you, when was the last time they scored 5 goals? Which was 1950.
That's crazy.
And Real Madrid's coach at the time, believe it or not, was an English guy, a guy called Mike Keeping.
Mike Keeping?
I'm sad to report he was not a goalkeeper. He was a fullback. He played, I swear, he played for Southampton and Fulham, over 200 appearances for each. And his illustrious coaching career includes Real Madrid, some team called HBS in the Netherlands, Poole Town, Heracles, and he is also reported to have held positions in Denmark, France, and North Africa.
What do you mean he was reported? Sorry, did you say North Africa at the end?
Yes, North Africa.
Somewhere in North Africa.
He was just there.
That's a very English thing to do, though, right?
Yeah.
It's you turned up in North Africa.
He was in France. He went down the sea. He went somewhere. We don't know where he went. He just went to North Africa.
What a career! Wasn't there also, am I imagining this, but wasn't there also a preseason game a couple of years ago where they won 7-3?
Yeah, they did. It was Champions Cup, but I'm not counting that. That's fake.
Okay. But that was in my head after this result. But I mean, look, in this game, it was Real Madrid so far this season, what we've seen them do is do their version of the Barcelona thing, right? Which is we're going to push up and the whole game is going to happen in your third and the edge of the middle third, right? So far this season, we've seen Barcelona are very extreme. About 20% of the game happens in Barcelona's own third. and the rest all happens in the middle third and their final third. And Real Madrid this season have been just a couple of percentage points above that, like 22% in their third. So they are really doing this, like really compressing the field, relying on, these athletic defenders they've got to hold the other team in a bit of a net. But in this game, we saw them, it was only really in the last 20 minutes of the match that it felt like they were aggressively pushing up, pressing, and trying to hold the ball. Like up until about 70 minutes, the possession split was like 55-45. And then the last 20 minutes of the game, do you know what the possession split was?
I'm going to guess it's like 85-15 or something crazy.
No, it was only 76, 76-24. But still, I was like 76% of the ball away at Atleti at the end of the game is very funny. But obviously by then they're 4-2 down. So what did you think? Could you even work out like what Xabi Alonso's plan was here, or I don't know if you can make more sense of this than I can, because watching the game I was like, I do not know what the idea was for how this was going to work.
I mean, there's like a lot of weirdness that went on. I will say for one, like their build-up was shockingly bad. Like they were just, Corta would pass to Huijsen and either he would mess up or he would pass to Carreras and he would mess up. And when they didn't mess up, they kicked it long. But like they don't have any target, so it's just like they gave it straight back to Atleti. So that was one very weird thing. And honestly, I have no explanation for that, because that just like allowed Atleti to step up without like any risk, even though like their press isn't the most coordinated. Like we were talking last week about how even Elche, who are good and put up like 3.5 XG this weekend somehow, but even Elche played through their press like pretty well. But then in this game, like Atletico just step up and Real Madrid would just, they were like, oh, what's the press? What's going on here? I thought you were supposed to drop back. So I can't explain that. Defensively, so actually, like just before we started recording, I just finished writing the newsletter, which goes out on Tuesday, which is about Real Madrid's defense. And so I was just looking at what they've been doing under Xabi Alonso and the issues they've had, which obviously were highlighted in this game, but there's some recurring issues which I was looking at. And one of them is like sometimes their weakness in a high line, which we've spoken about before. Like we spoke about that Marseille game in the Champions League, where what happened was like Marseille obviously plays something like a 4-4. So Real Madrid tried to go fully player oriented, but then like Marseille's striker and number 10 would drag the centre backs forward, and then they could hit the ball in behind for the wingers to run into. And I mean, the wingers combined for that goal. And so like there is that issue which they've had sometimes with their high line, where centre backs, can be dragged forward and then there's space in behind which teams attack. So maybe that was the idea, is like, let's not press high, because maybe Atleti obviously do have, wingers who can run behind, a target forward, Alexander Sørloth. Maybe the idea was, and obviously someone like Alvarez as well, who can just run straight through you with the ball. So you could, like, if I had to guess, maybe the idea was, let's not press so high so that we don't get done in behind. And instead, let's kind of try and keep a compact block, and deal our damage maybe on the counter bit. Spoiler alert, they did not keep account. I mean, I don't know what was up with that block, but I think another one of the potential issues is this was Jude Bellingham's first game back in the starting lineup. And so they did change something there, which is that like before they just used to normally drop back into a block like positionally. But now what they did was Bellingham would drop to the left side of midfield and Vinicius would stay high. So he'd stay alongside Mbappe and, potentially be a counter-attacking outlet, which they did last season as well under Ancelotti. But what happened was, like, with Bellingham dropping from the center to the left, the two central midfielders actually ended up dropping back quite a lot. And this created like a very curved midfield four. And obviously the front two, Mbappe and Vinicius, aren't guys who will like press back. Like they're gonna stay up to be outlets, but they're not gonna like, harass the defensive midfielder behind his back. So this like allowed Atleti's defensive midfielders to just kind of have the ball, dictate the game like you'd expect Real Madrid to do. And then what happened after that was, in many periods, they had real issues dealing with crosses. This is another thing I was looking at. I mean, there's again various things you can like chalk this up to. One, their wingers aren't always the best at like tracking back and doubling up, which again creates this curved shape and that allows people to put crosses in. But then two, like especially their defenders, the centre backs are like pretty good in the air on the whole. Like when you look at their overall duels numbers and other stuff. The fullbacks are not. So, if you hit crosses to the far post against their fullbacks, it's not happy days. And the thing, if you look at the second goal, like Sherlock starts on Carreras, and then he just walks straight past him. And Carreras is like, sure, man, why don't you go?
At least with that cross, at least like required a really great ball on the right foot from the left side. But they would because they were so passive in their press, they were giving up such good kind of crossing real estate, right? Like they had 7, I think, crosses, from the left side. Atleti did, and then 9 on the other side. But like there, you've got this cluster right on the edge of the box, and you've got a cluster right at the corner of the box. And I was like, this is exactly like, this is where you would draw up. This is where we want to cross from. This is where we want to do like open play set pieces from. And they get 2 goals and a penalty off this exact stuff. And again, like you say, 2 of those like just hit to the back stick, and it's kind of disastrous. Yeah, I mean, Soloth can do that to people, but even if you trust your centre backs, like you cannot give up these sorts of prime crossing locations to an Atletico Madrid side which drills this stuff and wants to create these opportunities. It just seems ludicrous.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're crossing merchants. Like, that's the one thing you don't want to give them.
Exactly.
but then also, like, there's crosses and then there's set pieces as well, which is also another thing I looked at in the piece. And like, this is the most difficult one, I think, long term, because everything we've talked about now, so like the high line, you can find a balance with that. I mean, they drop a bit too far here, but there's a balance to be found to manage it. Even crosses, you maybe get a bit more from your wingers tracking back, maybe get your center midfielders pushing up a bit more to press back, push the opponent back. You can still work it out. Set pieces is a real problem, because the thing is, so let's say Real Madrid's 2 starting center backs are Hussein and Militao. They're both good in the air. So you've got 2 good aerial presences there. Then in midfield, you have Tchouameni, who's really good, and like at best Kamavinga, although that rarely happens, but at best I'm saying you've Kamavinga, so that's 4 people. Then your fullbacks, no one is like good in the air, they're all below average actually. And your front 4 are all absolutely useless in the air. Like, they do not have a single attacker. Like, take Atleti for example, they'll put Sherlock back for corners because he's going to win a bunch of balls. But Real Madrid don't have any guy like that.
Is Bellingham not?
Bellingham is yeah. So at best you have 5. Like, but Bellingham is also like not super good, but okay. He's sure. Like, he certainly does a job. So you can get like 5 at best, right? 5, 6 maybe, even you find someone somewhere. Your opponent put maybe like 7 people in the box. Like, let's say they're playing a back 3, couple midfielders, striker. Like, against even the average opponent, like I looked at some numbers, like even against an average opponent, Real Madrid are quite likely to have 1 or 2 aerial mismatches in their box in set pieces. And that's just like personnel mismatches. So that's a very tough one to deal with. Like, don't get me wrong, their set piece, like design and just general preparedness has not been good for many years, like since Ancelotti was like his entire tenure. And I mean, like, they're 3rd right now in La Liga for set piece goals conceded and set piece XG conceded. Also have the highest proportion, like over 31% of their XGs from set pieces. So it's a big problem, but like, there's just not, like, you can improve, but you're never going to be really good at it, is what I think. And I did see they did hire a set piece coach from Leganes just 5 days ago. There's like a tweet on Twitter, someone quoted it, said fire him, because like, what the hell is that? But I mean, obviously, it's just, I mean, I don't think he had any influence in this game, but like, it's not an easy job to like just, it's not like a glaring structural issue which you can just correct. Like, that's a part of it, but then the other part is just personnel, and that's a tough one. So look, just don't concede set pieces. Just stay high up the pitch.
That's the strategy. Yeah, you've got to keep it away from goal. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that evolves in the Champions League, because in La Liga it's already a problem for them, and that is not a league where you expect them to be getting like physically dominated. But if they come up against like Inter-type sides in the Champions League, then I don't know. It's going to be a little bit worrying for them. I mean, in this game they almost got bailed out by the fact that you just have Mbappe, who can just do insane things. And the Goulet the Goulet assist for the Mbappe goal was almost exactly like that Ozil Ronaldo goal, which I think is is exactly like
Barcelona,
it.
I think,
Yeah, Barcelona. Yeah. I kind of could not believe it, but this is the thing that they have. I just, at the same time, I really don't know what to make of the game. Like, I just think, well, what have we learned? Don't do that again.
Like that was very weird. Let's not do that.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to say on this game? Because it sounds like, really, if people want to hear more about Real Madrid's weaknesses this season, then they should stay tuned for the newsletter that's out tomorrow. But did anything else crop up? Or do you think that Bellingham being back in the team can help some of the stuff you were talking about, though, about not having a target so they can maybe hit over a press? He can go in and play that situational centre forward role when you have Mbappe going out wide. Do you think that should help them in the long term?
Yeah, I mean, even like at the Club World Cup, I was looking forward to seeing him back, because even from there, they had the like inside forward super high alongside Mbappe. But it was guys like Goulet, for example, who obviously great ball to feet, but like not so good off the ball. So Bellingham definitely adds like another dimension, can help out with maybe a bit of defending and set pieces and stuff. And also like what we saw in the second half here, like you're saying, they had tons of possession. They had no real like ideas against a low block. Like it was just Vinicius dribbling inside and even more inside, and then eventually shooting, and then like it would go somewhere. So if like they obviously work on some of that a bit more and can use Bellingham as a kind of situational striker, like you say, in the box, and have someone like Mbappe making runs around him, that could be something against low blocks, which obviously they will have this just individual player quality around them, like, their wingers dribbling, even someone like Goulet or even Valverde popping up with like a rocket from range. So they'll give them kind of different options and variety to try and break it down. So yeah, I think his return definitely helps, but not if they play like they did here. So let's not do that again, guys.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad that we learned something. And it's nice that we're keeping the title race interesting. Like nobody looks unbeatable in La Liga, which is a nice thing to see. Also, before we move on, like that you made reference to Elche there. I was checking in on the Elche stats in this game, and at one point they had under 50% possession early on, and I was like, oh man. Like, what's going on here? And then I checked in at the end, and I was like, up to 60. Like we made it, guys. And then of course as well, we talked about Frankfurt being insane. Checked in on that game on Sunday, 6-4.
Completely normal.
Yeah, completely normal Frankfurt match. It's an amazing game where like the first half of the game, one manager, they're just showing one manager on the bench, like shaking his head, putting his head in the hands. Second half, the other manager doing exactly the same. It was incredible.
But the funny thing is, I haven't checked, but I'm very confident, I'll check right now, that the Bundesliga on YouTube put out their traditional 2-minute highlight package for this 10 goal game. And it'll be like, 15 seconds for every goal, like just the literal second the ball leaves the player who's assisting's feet and like into the net, and that's it. So yeah, go check out the Bundesliga highlights. Oh, okay, it's 4 minutes this time actually. Do you know what? Fair play.
Wow.
Fair play to the Bundesliga. Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
I mean, Sky Sports does a similar thing for games in Europe's top 5 leagues. They had a like 1 minute 40, I think, highlight package of the Madrid Derby, and I was just like, this is just like go, penalty given, goal. Like it was just absolutely incessant. But look, we're not doing victory laps here today. We do that on the midweek podcast. We wanted to talk a bit about the relegation battle today because it's been really fascinating so far this season. Before the season started, obviously we both wrote previews for the transfer flow. And if you want to get some background knowledge on, like what we thought these teams were going to look like going into the season, those are still available. But we collectively had the bottom 5 as West Ham, Wolves, Leeds, Sunderland, Burnley, in that order going down. I was lower on Wolves than that. I was a bit higher on Leeds and Sunderland than that. And look, after 6 games, no one is safe. But Sunderland and Leeds, to be honest, are looking pretty good, man. Like Sunderland have 11 points. They're 7 above the drop zone. They now need 29 from 32 to hit 40. So that's like 0.9 points per game they've got to go at for the rest of the season. Leeds are on 8 points. I mean, both these teams have negative expected goal difference, but That's quite intriguing. Should we talk about Leeds and Sunderland as a group first? Then we can talk about Burnley. Then maybe we can talk about West Ham Wolves. And then I know you've got like 4 other teams that you're
just
like, and also like, should we throw in like Liverpool in this? Like, you know, like you're just throwing in everybody.
Mathematically possible. It's mathematically possible.
It's technically possible. But Sunderland and Leeds are the surprise packages so far, I guess. Like they've both done pretty well. And of these two, I've got to say, like Leeds, especially when you look at the quality of the schedule, you know, they played Arsenal away, they played Newcastle, they played Bournemouth. Sunderland have had a much easier schedule, and Sunderland have basically played one good side. That was Palace, and they kind of got slapped a little bit on expected goals. On the other hand, you know, I'm not trying to do down Sunderland here. Like, you can both have an easy schedule and need to win those easy games to stay up, and they are doing that. But both of these sides I've been mildly impressed by.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Leeds, I've forgotten where I put them in my I think I had them staying up actually, like with West Ham 18th.
I had them 17th.
Yeah, I think, you know, like going into the season, maybe some people just dismiss them as like, oh yeah, these guys go up and down all the time. But like, you know, in the championship, they were a very competent team, and they weren't like a Russell Martin Southampton, right? Where we have 1 million possession and we don't do defending ever. And we just like win all our games that way. Like they showed some qualities which you think, okay, this can actually translate to the Premier League. And like you said, they've not been playing like completely random opponents. Like they've had Fulham, Wolves, Bournemouth. They just got a draw with, of course, this weekend. So, you know, these are serious teams, and they beat Everton as well to start the season. And yeah, like they are negative for goal difference and expected goal difference, but actually they've underperformed both their like XG and XGA. So it's like, it's not even like, we'll get on to Sunderland where there is actually some overperformance involved, but with Leeds it's not even that. So yeah, like I think they've just looked like a, you know, competent team all round. Like they can compete certainly with like the teams around them, right? Like they beat Wolves pretty, I mean, with a good performance. And yeah, like you say, they have the quality, and when there's games like that, you think, like, why not? Like these guys can definitely stick with this pack and maybe even have enough to stay up when some of the others, which we'll get onto, are struggling a bit. So yeah, like Leeds, I think just like all round look pretty like you know, they're a kind of team who can, I won't say necessarily like they're the best at, to be fair, like low blocking and frustrating opponents. I mean, we saw that against like Arsenal, kind of smashed them. But in these more like evenly matched games, like they can definitely hold their own. And ultimately, like I think it'll be fine if they get smashed a bit by the top teams, because like we were saying, the relegation and lower mid-table pack is very big. So if they get enough points from those games, which they've shown the ability to do, they should be able to certainly put up a very good fight, if not stay up. So,
and
yeah,
the Arsenal game, you know, like it's a set piece that opens the scoring.
Yeah,
you know, yeah. and then you can't really play the way that you want to play, right? But yeah, it's interesting that they've had under 50% possession in all bar one game, Leeds, and yet they've allowed under 1 XG in 4 of 6 games. Like, it does feel with them, and actually I would extend this even to Burnley, who've shown this in moments. Like I think about the Liverpool game, for example. All 3 of these teams do seem to have come up at least with the understanding that we are going to need to spend stretches of our games defending deep. We are going to need to have that club in our bag. And all 3 of them have shown an ability to do it to varying degrees so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, Burnley actually have looked quite good in first periods, but then obviously also gotten smashed in periods. But Sunderland is the really interesting one for me. I mean, like so far, I would say the key has been Robin Rose, the goalkeeper, who, I mean, they're like three goals fewer conceded than XG, and he's plus 2.7 on post shot expected goals. So he's pretty much like the entire reason for their defensive overperformance. And he's been making some incredible saves. I mean, I've seen a few highlights and watched a couple of games, so he's been really, really good. But like on the whole, the thing that kind of stands out about them is that they're just flexible. You know, they come up with like slightly different stuff for different games. They switch between back 4, back 5, depending on what the situation is. And they look solid enough in all, like whatever you're throwing at them. And they have good squad depth now with all the spending they did in the summer. So it's not like they're super reliant. Obviously, Ruffs is the outlier there, but elsewhere they're not super reliant on anything, on any player rather. And they have this nice mix of like some kind of youthful quality, like on the wings, but then also some experience, like Xhaka in midfield. I thought against Forest this weekend was really good at controlling the tempo, keeping the game as quiet as it needed to be, and also opening it up at times when they needed. So, like, yeah, they have a kind of a great mix of everything, good flexibility. Obviously, they're like massively overperforming right now. We don't expect them to be anywhere near the top half, even. But they to be honest, at the start, like when they got promoted even early into the window, I was like, look, guys, let's just prepare for another championship season. You're in the Premier League now, you've got some money, make some sensible transfers so that like next season you can seriously think about like pushing for promotion directly and then think about building and staying up.
Mm-hmm.
But like now, I mean, obviously, like you say, 11 points is a lot already. And they've shown this flexibility where they can adapt to different challenges and have different kind of qualities. So, I mean, why not? Like, there's a very good chance they can stay up.
Yeah, and I think they're allowing really low quality shots. They've got the lowest shot quality against in the league.
Wow.
So I also think that might be a part of the overperformance defensively too. That like both Rufs has been good, but you've also got a lot of shots being racked up that are just like not very good, and they're like more savable than the total XG would suggest. Like that might be going on as well. I just think Sunderland. The schedule's going to get harder. We will see how it goes, but like right now they are winning these winnable games, and they've also been getting Wilson Isidore like 4.2 shots per 90. He's on that right now, and obviously Leeds as well have been getting Calvert-Lewin on the field. Like these things in itself, like I'm not saying that Isidore is getting like huge chances, but if your forward is getting 4 shots per 90 in the Premier League, like, well, we quite often will say, oh, well, what's the difference between West Ham and these sides? Well, West Ham have Bowen. But if you've got a forward who's putting up Premier League quality numbers, who's playing at that level, then it really shrinks that gap. I mean, Burnley, the difficulty with Burnley is like we haven't really learned that much, right? Because they've had an insanely hard schedule. I've had Liverpool, United, I mean, that's winnable. But Liverpool, United, City, Spurs, and their 2 really winnable games have been Forest and Sunderland. And actually, they've taken 4 points from those games. But to me, it feels like when a team comes up, there's like a level of the ball that you can concede, Like if you have, like Sean Dyche's Burnley teams used to have like 42% of the ball. And Burnley right now have 33.8% of the ball. And I just think like you can defend without the ball. You might be okay doing that, but at a certain level, your opponent has so much territory and so much possession that it does become likely to turn into goals. Like Jaden Anthony's been good for them so far, but I mean, like they're and they've also got some more winnable fixtures coming up, but I don't know. There's basically nothing that's happened with Burnley to make me change my view that Burnley are going down. I don't really have much more to add on them than that. Like they're still in my bottom 3. They're still, I think, the least talented squad in the division. I don't really see a way out.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree on the kind of possession thing, but then again, like I would again say like these games, it's just so because like against Sunderland, for example, they had 42% possession, which is fine. But like, when you have like 15% or something against Liverpool, it like massively skews your so like you said, I think these next few games where they've got, they've got Leeds week after next, then Wolves, then West Ham soon enough. Like these games will really tell us what they're about. They have got 4 points from those 2 games that you mentioned. They need to get into double digits, I think, with these. And then they've got Brentford at the end of November. I think by then they at least have to be well into double digits to have a shot. But yeah, I will say like they have defended like quite solidly in stretches, maybe a bit more so than I was expecting. Like they have been pretty good and compact, and at the same time had some outlet up top obviously Jaden Anthony's been getting a few goals, but Lyle Foster, I think, leads the line well. And then they can do a bit with set pieces. So there is something there, even in this like low block encounter, which maybe might get them a result or two. But obviously, really what we want to see is what can you do again in those more competitive games against more evenly matched sides. So that I think that's what will really tell us where Burnley are. But yeah, I mean, right now, like between the three newly promoted teams, you still have to say they're the likeliest to go down.
Yeah.
For the moment. So obviously, them already being in the relegation zone is a part of that. But yeah, like I at the very least, I think they'll put up a good fight, and like I won't call them like absolute corners.
No, sure.
Right now. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch them as well.
After them, the teams with the worst numbers, you've got Villa, you've got Wolves, and then you've got West Ham with the worst expected goal difference in the Premier League. Those next three. I mean, Villa got a win at the weekend, but they've had the same or less XG than their opponents in every league game this season so far. The schedule has not been tough. I look at Ollie Watkins' numbers and I think, because like he's at like 1.5 shots and 0.3 expected goals per 90. And you look at his history and you're like, it's 3,000 minutes every season since he was 19, and he's closing in on 30 now. And that worries me a little bit. Well, no, it worries me largely. But like the bigger issue is like defensive, right? Like they are giving up huge chances. They're giving up a ton of shots. They haven't had a single good defensive game this season, I don't think. I mean, Villa is just a situation where I'm kind of like, okay, you can't sack Unai Emery, but you can think about who you'd get if you were to sack Unai Emery. Like that's the conversation that I would be having right now at Villa. And of course, they've just changed director of football as well, which quite often precedes a managerial change. What are your thoughts on them? Like, because I don't really understand why they are so well. I can understand one reason, which is that they rolled out like a Bukada and McGinn double pivot this weekend. They've done that already. Onana has barely played. Camara hasn't played that much. These are their top two ball winners. This is a problem.
Yeah, mind problem there. But I mean, yeah, like the defensive side is one thing. Also, they've just been horrendous, like in attack, and like that is, I think, more of a squad issue, where like I mean, obviously we knew this transfer window they were going to be limited with PSR and everything, but like the signings they made versus the money they spent, like they could have done a lot better, because like you look at their attack in many games right now, and it's like obviously Watkins up top, 3 dudes who want the ball to their feet behind him, and that's it. So all they do is they pass it around, pass it to some guy's foot. Oh, the opponent's happily sitting in the block, and then they just keep passing it a bit, and then eventually you're going to lose the ball, and you're going to get countered, and you don't have your 2 main ball winners in midfield, and then you get hit. So, like, I think, a good chunk of the issue actually stems from that in possession stuff. And I don't know, man. Like, obviously, on one hand, it would be good to have some like wingers who can maybe try to make off ball. I mean, they do have Evan Gasson, to be fair, so he does that sometimes. But it would be good to have like some guys who more often make those runs. And then on the other hand, it would be really good to see some more like intent from them when they're playing the ball to go more direct and look for those wingers when they're like going in behind. I mean, they did score against Fulham that way, right? I mean, it was complete fluke. Like, I think Anderson missed the ball, Bassi let Watkins go, and then he chipped the keeper. But, like, that's the kind of stuff you want to see a bit of. And again, that also comes from personnel. Like, obviously, Pau Torres was back as opposed to Mings. So that definitely gives you more like forward ball playing progression. So yeah, there's definitely some of it is in the personnel, but it's also just also in the squad building, in like their intention, their approach. So yeah, all on it, they're not a fun team to watch. But like, if we think about the relegation battle, I just think they have like too much quality to actually get sucked in. And once those guys come back, once they have more of a first choice team, like I don't think they can push for Europe at this rate. Doesn't look likely at all. But like I don't think they'll be anywhere near the relegation battle either. Like they have enough, and even like if it goes real bad, they can still sack Emery, get a guy, and like any guy who knows anything about football can get them out of the relegation battle. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't think that we're like seriously worried about Villa, except we're kind of like worried about how things are going. It's not like relegation should be on the cards. There does feel like there's too much quality there. And ultimately, you know, we haven't seen much of Sancho. We haven't seen much of Elliot. Like the attack does just have guys who can do stuff, which is an important currency. Wolves and West Ham. I mean, West Ham have already made their managerial change. Like these teams are absolute garbage so far. Like scoring under 1 goal a game, giving up more than 2. West Ham have got rid of Potter, got in Nuno. I think everyone broadly agrees this is like a necessary move. I'm kind of intrigued as to see what he does with this defense, though, because look, obviously with Forest this season, he wasn't playing this way, but historically, Nuno does have his preferences for how he wants to play. And I wonder if he looks at Kilman, Todibo, Mavropanos, like all these guys and says, I've got Diouf and Kyle Walker-Peters as well, and thinks, shit, I can do that thing I like. I wonder if he's going to, but you do still look at this team and I think like, what's the midfield here? Yeah. Is it like Souček Magassa? Is it Magassa Fernandez? Like, I just don't, I can't work it out. Fernandez is just such a weird player for them to have spent nearly 40 mil on. I just think, why don't you just get a normal central midfielder who does central midfield stuff rather than this guy who's kind of like Paquetá, right? It's like, is he a midfielder? Not really. Is he an attacking midfielder? Not really. He's kind of a bit of both. But at the same time, I can see how a Forest style kind of 3-4-3 could work.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one, but yeah, I do think there's just about enough quality in this. Like you think about Bowen up top, Paqueta if he's on it, set piece merchantry, Souček getting a few headers. Like
their set pieces right now, though, are genuinely disgusting.
They're horrendous. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm really hoping Nuno can kind of bring in some set pieces because like it is horrendous right now. But and also like both like attacking and also like defending. Don't even get me started. But like I'm almost certain that it has to improve. It can't possibly get worse than what it was. So it has to improve under Nuno. So I don't know, man. Like it's like when if Nuno started the season with this squad, it would still be a very bad squad.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe be a bit more confident, but like now I'm still a bit concerned because, like, on the one hand, Leeds and Sunderland are putting up those points, and then so it's not going to be one of those ones like last season where the bottom three is way adrift, and as long as you're not doing completely insane stuff, you're fine. Like I think this time you actually have to be not horrendous to not get relegated. And like West Ham, I don't know, man. Like I to be honest, I'm interested to see how it goes, and I have maybe obviously a better opinion in a few games. But like on the one hand, I look at guys like Kilman and Todibo and Igor, like you said. Like actually, these guys can play the ball. So is he going to do the thing he was trying to do at Forest this season, like at the start? Or is he, like you said, just going to be like, this team is horrendous, we just got to get them in a block and, try and like put a lid on something. So I think that's what I'm interested to see more is like how like he approaches it to start with. And obviously we'll get a first look today. And probably that'll tell us, how it's going to go. But yeah, I mean, like this squad, man, it does not inspire, any confidence anywhere. Like, what is going on with this squad?
Yeah, they're a Bowen injury away from absolute disaster here. And I mean, to be fair, as we've said, set pieces are a big difference maker here. Like more than half their goals this season have been conceded from set pieces. They've given up 3.5 XG there. Only Chelsea have given up more. Very, very funny. So like, if you stop giving up embarrassing goals, then that does get you somewhere. And their next run, they've got Everton and Arsenal away, their next 2 fixtures, not enjoyable. But then they've got 3 of the next 4 at home, and they've got Brentford, Leeds, and Burnley in there. So by early November, we should have some idea of whether there's some hope here. But I do just look at the squad and I think, just get any midfielder who can run and defend and pass a little bit. Like
who can do 2 things at a time. Just like,
yes, exactly.
They have like one guy who just heads balls. They have one guy who purely does set pieces. Like that's the only reason he's a professional footballer.
He's never hit a rolling ball.
Only red balls and golf balls, apparently. I think that probably explains it. And then, yeah, they have all these other weird guys that are like, are they not even, they're half midfielders at best. So, yeah, like a little bit more kind of sensible transfers would be good. But I mean, I don't know, but like they haven't, like, unlike Villa, for example, they haven't seemed to change much, beyond the manager. So I don't know what it's going to be like in January. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I love how we're like, we'll talk about relegation teams today, and then at every team, but like, actually, we're gonna find out in a few weeks, so we don't know.
But
I
the
mean,
answer
that is how it is. Yeah,
all of these teams could be relegated, like potentially. I mean, like Wolves again. Like you look at Wolves' business in the summer, and it's like 50% pretty good. And Fer Lopez has barely played so far, but when he's played, you're like, oh, okay, like this is exciting. And they obviously got in Tolu, and with Tolu and Strand Larsen, you're like, this is some attack. Like those are amazing options for a team in their position to have. And their last couple of games played Spurs even, got really unlucky against Leeds. In every other game, they've been basically diabolical. But we do still, if you look at their defensive numbers, there are a bunch of teams below them. And if you looked at the defensive numbers last season, there were a bunch of teams below them, not just the relegated sides. It was like 5 or 6 teams below them. So you sort of think if the defense can get functioning, the attack should have enough. But now they're on 1 point. I mean, like they are so far adrift of Leeds and especially of Sunderland that you think even if they get decent, can they overhaul all the teams like that? That's where we start maybe getting into your other candidates here, because who else have you got on your list? Like I kind of wanted to end this whole segment by asking you who you would now predict to go down, given the information we have. And I started trying to do it myself, and I was like, "This is impossible, man! Like, I don't trust any of these sides. Like, I guess I'd still put Burnley there because I thought they were bad, and they haven't done anything to convince me they're not. But it's not because they have been like shockingly awful. It's just that I don't like them as much as I like these other sides. But who else is in the mix here? Because Brentford have not been convincing. Forest have been far from convincing. Liverpool not convincing. Chelsea not convincing. Who else are we putting in here, Neel?
Yeah, I mean, really, you could put half the league. But I mean, just quickly on Wolves, I will say, like, going into the season, I thought they would be okay. And I thought this about Brentford as well. Because what I thought is, you have a solid block, you have a couple of good attackers, like you said, and in Brentford's case, you have set pieces. And like that should be enough to get you somewhere. But like with Wolves, like now the main question I'd ask is about, like, they do have 2 great strikers, but I am starting to question the service now. Because they've lost Cunha, and sure, Lopez is an exciting talent, but he doesn't replace that level of like not just attacking production, but also like ball carrying up the field, transition attacking. That's my main question with them. And yeah, like obviously, you gotta defend a bit better than you have, but they've also like switched formations, back 5, back 4. They've been like mixing and matching it a bit. So like I don't know. I mean, like it's also interesting because Vitor Pereira, like when he came in at Wolves, we were all like, "Who is this dude? Like, what does he know?" And then he's like, "Okay, actually, he's doing some good, like decent stuff, fair play." And now he's once again back to like, "What are you doing, man?" I don't know how that's gonna go. They've also been not good at set pieces. But speaking of like upcoming runs, they've got Brighton, Sunderland, Burnley, Fulham coming up next.
Okay.
So like that is the most important run, I think, of all the teams we talk about. Like Wolves, I think, will be the most clear within the next month because they have to get something there. I mean, they have to get at least 2 wins, I reckon. And if not, you're in trouble. So that's Wolves. Now, as for the others, like I said, I mean, Brentford, I still think are going to be okay because I think they've shown enough. Like, it's not always been great. Sometimes they've got stuff wrong in matches, like haven't always been great defensively, sometimes gotten some tactics wrong. But like, they have an amazing outlet in Igor Thiago. They have guys who can run around him in Dango Ouattara, Kevin Shardy. They can counter. They can defend solidly. They can like spam set pieces, like we saw against United. Like at the first half, they were just like set piece, set piece, set piece, set piece, and United were like, "What's going on?" So I think, yeah, like I'm still like they're gonna be okay, even though they're just like 3 points above the relegation zone, and like there's so much unpredictability with all the other teams. I'm still gonna back them. The interesting name I want to throw in is Nottingham Forest.
Okay.
And I know, like, going into the season, we said, I mean, they were my underwhelming team for the season, but even then I said they're not going to get relegated. They're just like going to be lower mid-table.
Like 14th, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But like now I'm like, wait a minute, guys. Like Sunderland and Leeds are putting up points, and you haven't won a game in 7 matches, and you've sacked the coach who got you very far, and you've gotten a guy whose best achievements largely include winning leagues with very strong teams. Sure, I'm not including Brisbane Roar from the 2013 A-League there, but that was over a decade ago. You know, after that, you look at Yokohama Marinos, Celtic, and obviously at Tottenham, there were questions in like the games where they weren't the stronger team, they weren't dominant. They did some pretty silly stuff. Now, obviously, he hasn't put his high line in the attacking third so far, at least, but like they haven't looked particularly inspiring to me. So now again, they're another one where they do have pretty clear quality advantage, I will still say. Like they do have some very good attackers, very good midfielders. And so like on paper, they shouldn't be here. And, you know, they're still outside the relegation zone, albeit by just 1 point. They should have enough. But yeah, I'm gonna put them in the watch list for the relegation battle now, because I'm like, this is it's like there's concerning stuff going on with you, and the other guys aren't so concerning broadly. So yeah, that's why I'm throwing Forest in. I do have a couple others, but do you have something to say about Forest, or should I go on?
I'm inclined to think that they'll be okay, because I do think the quality of the platform is so good. Like when you've got Anderson and Songare like in central midfield, I'm kind of like
you can't get relegated with that.
Yeah, I think you have to try to get relegated with that, and Ange is gonna try, but is he going to try hard enough? Like that's the question. When you compare that to the midfield that West Ham's going to roll out, for example, or Wolves is going to roll out, it's just like night and day. I still kind of like the talent for Ange. I still do, and the attack is all right. It's like mid-table. The defense is bad, but it's not like calamitously bad in the way that some of these teams have looked so far. I think Forest are gonna be okay by virtue of a bunch of these teams being really quite bad. Like I think the bottom quarter of the league this season looks kind of disastrous, but that's more on the teams that were here last season than it is on the teams that have come up. The teams that have come up are kind of doing a decent job, like given the disadvantage you have, and some of those might stay up. But there were teams in the league who managed to retain their place last season who, frankly, like from a moral point of view, should have been relegated. So I'm kind of okay with Forest. I think that Forest, and even if Forest were disastrous under Ange and got rid of him.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Villa.
There are so many functional 11s you could make out of this Forest squad. Like, I actually am more worried about Villa in a way, because I think I've seen this Forest squad play defensively, and I've seen it play this slightly more expansive style, and the defense was good. The defensive way was good. They were good doing that. With this West Ham team, or this, you know, especially with the West Ham team, and with Villa, I'm kind of like, what are these sides good at? Like, what are they actually good at? And I don't really have a coherent answer to that. That's what really worries me. And I certainly don't think that Emery has a convincing answer to that. So I don't know. I guess this is all like kind of vibes analysis. You said you had somebody else, and then we'll wrap this up, because like, yeah, we could just keep going until we reach like the top 3, to be honest.
Manchester City. Another one I'll throw in, and again, this is like not it's very much in the Forest kind of area, but like Fulham, they always go and get like 13th, and like they're to be fair, like a very competent team on the whole. Like when on the pitch, like I really like them. I really like Marco. So I think it was Kim or Ted, like someone in the season previews said Marco Silva is the most normal manager in the Premier League, and like that's a compliment. And like I totally agree with that. So I don't think it's anything to do with like the coaching, the tactics, what's on the pitch. Like my problem with Fulham is just the transfers, because the squad building was terrible. They haven't added anything. Like it was like literally on deadline day, they were like, oh shit, it's a transfer window. We got to make signings. Who's available? Throw a bunch of money at them. But like you look at their squad, they are an injury crisis away from, and obviously like an injury crisis doesn't come about. But if a couple of their midfielders get injured, like, Berger Lukic, first of all, is not the most like exciting double pivots in the world anyway. But like if those guys get injured, you've got Harrison Reed, Tom Kearney. I don't know what you do then. So and there's other positions as well, like left back it's Robinson, Sessegnon, but then like nothing super exciting. Like it's a dangerous game they're playing, is what I'll say. It's like it still should be fine. Like it would take something like extremely unlucky for them to get sucked into that really bad call, but it is possible.
And it's possible to see the defense being bad, and there are just periods where that attack is incapable of anything. Like it is weird that they sold Palhinha for a ton of money, and since then they've had 3 windows, and they haven't got in a guy who can just run around and defend. Like Berger is obviously a guy who like plays in that position, but he doesn't put up big defensive numbers, and he never really has since he left Belgium or wherever he was. He was Belgium, right? Yeah. Like he's never really done that. And Lukic is just like faceless regen player. Like again, I've got no problem with him, but just like faceless regen player. So I always look at that team and I'm like, this is kind of at the back. It's like I quite like their defenders. Their defenders are like pretty decent, I think.
Yeah, they're all right. They're all fine.
And then from defense onwards, I'm like, this is Alex Iwobi. This is the Alex Iwobi show. And it's like, if Iwobi can't pass it into the final third, nobody can. And don't worry, we've got Harry Wilson coming off the bench. And Harry Wilson gets just enough goals that I think the average, like, kind of Premier League watcher is like, oh, that guy's a pretty useful player. But you do not want him starting regularly for this team.
They're playing a literal child ahead of him. That tells you a lot.
Yeah. A guy who, in my mind, like, when I first saw that name on the team sheet, I was just like, it's not that Josh King, right? It's a different Josh King, and it is a different Josh King. But yeah, so I don't know. With Fulham, I think they're kind of in a zone where they need to have the wake up call that like Palace got, where after season on season they were seeing their talent diminish, and they were picking up kind of late 20s Premier League experienced hands, and it was. And it was like, if you carry on doing this, guys, like relegation will come one day. It just will come. They need to do something about this now. If they don't, then things are going to get bad for them pretty quickly. But realistically, this season, like, they're just too competent. They're just fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
And there will always be at least 2 teams that are god awful. Another team that's unlucky. Another few teams that are pretty bad. I think Fulham will kind of be okay. But I'm not going to wrap this section by asking you who's going to get relegated.
Oh, God.
I'm afraid that this is purely contentless section of the podcast today.
Wait, but you forgot my last team.
Oh,
there's one more team.
Yeah.
If you look at the table, so we talked about Brentford, who have 7 points. Talked about Leeds, 8 points. Fulham, 8 points. We talked about Sunderland, 11 points. How can we leave without talking about Manchester United on 7 points, 3 points above the relegation zone? What do you think, Patrick?
Only Villa and Burnley have conceded more XG than them this season. Have you seen? Okay, here's my Manchester United thing.
All right.
Manchester United are a +6 shots differential side. They're currently taking the most shots in the league. We've covered this. They're actually conceding very few. They're conceding like 9.3 shots a game. They're +6. So they're around the same level as Arsenal, shot differential.
They're top of the XG table, like XG4 as well.
Yes. However, if you look at the non-penalty XG per shot against in the Premier League, the second worst is 0.12 non-penalty expected goals per shot. Manchester United are at 0.17 non-penalty expected goals per shot. So we're approaching like a 1 in 5 chance that any shot against Manchester United goes in. Like, they are giving up horrible chances. The attack looks broadly fine, though I think, there was the sequence this weekend where Šeško had 3 shots in one move, and I was like, those 3 shots and that 1 expected goal are going to keep your numbers respectable for like 4 games, my friend. But I still, we've talked about this, like Cunha and Burmo, Bruno, the wing backs, Šeško, like this the attack should be okay. The defense, though, still looks as bad as it's ever been. I seriously do not know what the plan is, and they are gonna struggle to get results this season purely because they cannot keep people out at all, and that is a coachable problem that just seems like it's not being solved. Like, they obviously decided in attack we need talent to fix our issues, but in defense they need some kind of coherent system. Like, you may have heard about these, like a coherent system with which to defend. Manchester United offer a different path, but I'm not sure it's working out for them, is my take on Man United. They look better than they did last season, but they are a long way away from good.
So not getting relegated then?
Look, I think that sometimes good things happen to good people, Neel. And I am that good person. but look, I don't know with Man United. Like, they have shown the ability at different points to put on some pressure, which they didn't seem to have before, which is nice. Cunha being back, I think, is like a huge difference maker for them. Like, there were moments in this game at the weekend where he picked up the ball in midfield and really drove them on in the way that you're saying, Wolves have lost that in him.
Yeah, exactly.
Manchester United are seriously going to benefit from that. So that's good stuff. And Mbeumo won't hit the woodwork every game all season. He might do it every other game, but it'll be fine. Shall we do a quick tour of some of the other games before we get out of here, because we're going pretty long today? And look, the relegation battle, I think it's going to go right down to the wire this season. Like you said, I can't see three teams getting cut totally adrift. Spurs had an interesting match this weekend. Liverpool and Arsenal had relatively interesting matches. Where do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, let's just kind of do maybe a hodgepodge thing if we can, because I've got some numbers which maybe you can compare. So one of the things, I mean, the reason I wanted to talk about Spurs was because they've been horrendous in open play in recent games. Like, at the start it was decent, right? I was like, all right, Thomas Frank, like, you're doing what we expected, and it's all right, it's all good. And then now he suddenly decided, guys, let us not try to play football at all. And what you've got as a result is a grand total of 0.15 expected goals against Bournemouth, 0.6 open play expected goals in a 3-0 win over the mighty West Ham United, and 0.68 expected goals in a 1-1 draw thanks to a 94th minute Joao Palhinha long shot against the mighty Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I don't know what they're trying to do, man. Initially, start of the season, we were talking, they had Kudus inside, playing off a striker, linking up, carrying the ball. It was good stuff. Then they got Xavi Simons, who's really good at that. And Frank said, off you two, go to the wings. Do not come in the middle of the pitch ever. And just stay there. And that's the only minute, glimpse of attacking threat they showed was outwide with these guys. But in midfield, so on Twitter, Mark Stats has a bot which puts out pass maps at the end of every Premier League game. And so after this game, Nathan Clark, who does excellent Spurs analysis, quote tweeted that and said, "Good news, guys. This is the first time this season that two of our midfielders, Spurs midfielders, have a line between them. And that line takes 4 or 5 passes. But wait, that's not all. The thing is, it was the two defensive midfielders whose average positions was literally next, they were literally on top of each other. They were 4 yards from each other, and that was the line. And that's all. And then the Berwal, poor guy, was a complete island in attacking midfield. He was just so alone. Kudus to the right, Simons to the left, no one around him. I don't know what they're trying to do.
They're crossing. That's what they're doing. Only Forest are attempting more crosses than them at the moment. And I looked this up. Only Brentford and West Ham have had a higher proportion of headed shots than Spurs. So Spurs, because I was looking at this and I was like, oh, Brentford and Spurs have got the closest shots in the league. That's interesting. I'm imagining there's a lot of headers. Yeah, there are a lot of headers here. So the hope is obviously Xavi gets going, and maybe there's something here where Frank is kind of doing the conservative thing and right, okay, let's try and get everybody understanding the system, everybody working before we hand Xavi, this guy who just arrived, the keys to the whole team.
But man, it's Wolverhampton Wanderers. What are they going to do to you? Do something, please.
And this is what you've got, right? Kulusevski's not back potentially till the end of November.
Yeah.
Maddison isn't back until the end of time. Like, so you've got Xavi, and like he's the one guy that you've got, and you're playing Wolves at home. Yeah, man. I like it. They're at 11 shots per game now, and what's interesting as well is that they're pressing really hard against the more aggressive sides, right? Like they pressed really hard against Bournemouth, pressed really hard against Brighton, pressed against a bit against, didn't press at all against Wolves.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's just like these are absolutely guys you can press. Like, go. What are they gonna do? Like, go at them, and so it just seems really strange that they were like, okay, Brighton. It was like 5 their PPDA. They were so aggressive, it was insane. And then against Wolves, just like completely passive. And I thought Wolves are the team who probably can't deal with this if you do it. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Whether Frank is kind of uncertain about what how far his team can handle the space, you know, if they really do try and press up like this, or whether the Bournemouth game in particular maybe scared him a little bit and he decided to rein it in. But
I mean, you should do the other thing if you were scared. Like, just let them do something. If you were scared by 0.15 XG, what do? You tell guys, do not pass the ball ever again. Only do crosses. Like, I don't know.
Sure, but it's an interesting league this season, isn't it? Where like it does feel like we're still in this transitional stage between like what the league used to be and something else, and we are generally seeing like more conservatism across the board. It feels, you know, there are exceptions to that, like for example Liverpool, who had a game with Palace this weekend, which felt like it felt like a vindication of a lot of the stuff that we've said about Liverpool, which is this Liverpool side is very, very good, but you can apply pressure in particular areas and they will crack. And in this game, I think Opta had them, or FOTMob had them as giving up 7 big chances. And it certainly did feel that way watching the game. Like, I mean, Konate had a really difficult afternoon. Van Dijk looked incredibly out of sorts. Like having those two guys on an island, like this is what it's going to look like sometime. And Palace, especially Mateta, you know, Mateta's strength, I think, and intelligence, like he does have the ability to throw defenders around like this.
Yeah, I mean, it was so interesting because like at the start, Liverpool were circulating deep a lot and trying to bait Palace out a lot. And they did kind of come out for a moment, but then they dropped into their block. And then the way they counter punched the hell out of them. I mean, like they should have been three odd goals up in that first half. They created so much. And then, like, actually, you know, what I will say is, obviously in the first half, Palace deserved to be multiple goals up. And so when you look at the final score, like, it is fair that Palace won. But like, after half time, I think Liverpool did actually do pretty well to get a kind of lid on things. And this is what I really like about this Liverpool team, is that they can like hammer down any block and create a good amount. So obviously they made that sub, took Bradley off for Hakpo. So Wirtz went number 10, Szoboszlai to right back. And especially like this configuration of their attack, obviously, you know, having an option of like Ekitike as well would be great if he does not take his shirt off after scoring against a completely random lower league team. But, you know, like with this configuration, like the thing about Liverpool is that they can just hammer down any block, and they created quite, not just like a big volume of chances, but also like decent looks from like, you know, the central areas out like on the edge of the box. 1.75 XG in the second half. And I think like for what they built, they deserved that equalizer. But then on the whole, Palace deserved to win. But yeah, like that's like, this is what we expect, as you said, from Liverpool. It is concerning that, you know, their defense gets, you know, like thrown around like this, but the way they're playing, it will happen sometimes. And what they have to hope is they can just blow out any opponent with their attack to be able to make up for it, which they couldn't here, but might in other cases. But like, if you think about, you know, the title race as a whole, like I think this is what differentiates Liverpool from especially Arsenal, because when you put like Palace 1 goal up, you know, 5-4-1 low block, solidest block of all time is what you expect from Palace. But even then, Liverpool were able to create so much. Whereas if Arsenal are in this kind of situation, and we know they're trying to obviously find more, like play more open games, which is against Newcastle, trying to play more transitional, trying to bait the opponent and push out. But against a low block, like there's still questions about, they have quality. Of course, they've been missing players, but like Ødegaard came back and he looked amazing. And like I still do not understand how a single Arsenal fan can not be, you know,
I know.
Like I just don't get how you could possibly watch football and think that. But anyway, still, like with Arsenal, so I was looking at these stats. Do you want to guess what Arsenal's open play XG per 90 is in the league so far this season?
I'm going to say like 0.95.
It's 0.76, non-penalty, of course. And even Spurs are 5.23 overall, and Arsenal are 4.54. So like Spurs, and it's from the first game, but still, like Spurs have more open play XG than Arsenal. So like we saw some glimpses here, like for example, Eze was dropping back. Like he started quite high, but then when it was a low block, he was dropping back and trying to create a bit. Of course, Ødegaard did some nice glimpses of link-up play with the wingers. But just the way Liverpool can just like attack it, like absolutely swarm through, like absolutely put up a barrage against any defense and just like break them through with like sheer force. Arsenal don't really have that. And like you're saying, with the league, being so conservative on the whole, like most teams taking up more of these, let's keep a solid block and then we'll think about what we do after that. But that's our like basis. Like that's why I think Liverpool's approach might be able to get them a bit more joy. But I mean, obviously, again, we had a big swing this weekend, 3-point swing. So it's definitely going to be close. And like we've been saying throughout, Liverpool are just one centre-back injury away from it going very bad. Like even your first choice centre-backs can be kind of, muscled around like this. If you get a second choice guy in and your second choice aren't great, by the way, yeah, it's going to be a very bad day.
Well, especially after one of the second choice guys went down for the season, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Liverpool are much more offensively diverse than pretty much any team in the league now. I mean, like in the past, Man City would have been up there, but not anymore. What Arsenal do, I guess, is just like they're impossible to play against. Like Arsenal's defense is still just smothering. Like I think they're averaging 0.65 expected goals against per 90 this season. It's fairly clear. I think it would be hard, I think, to make a case that Arsenal are not the best defensive team in the world. They allowed one open play shot in this game away at St. James's Park. And it was nice that, like, last year, I said this to you before we started, but the same possession in this game as in this game last year, 63-37 in Arsenal's favour. So huge possession advantage for Arsenal. Last year, it was 10 shots to 9 at St. James's Park. This year, it was 20 shots to 8. So Arsenal weren't getting great shots. Like Gyökeres had 6 shots in this game, like half of those were blocked. But 6 shots for Gyökeres, 4 for Eze. Suddenly, like this volume will help. And there were shots that Eze got away, especially in this game, that Arsenal, I think, have really struggled to get away previously. Like where he'll bring the ball down and get a snapshot that's actually pretty good. There was one that went right past the post. I think Pope saved it, actually. These sorts of shots you hope will enable them to move around the block. And then obviously late on as well, when you get the combination of Eze and Ødegaard and other guys, I mean, like Lewis Skelly belongs in that conversation as well. You've got so many guys who can carry centrally, who are willing to take that risk centrally, and who are good passers. There's an Ødegaard pass as well for Lewis Skelly.
Yeah.
Where I was kind of like, oh, this is a real Wenger pass. Like this is something that we always saw from Özil to like Bellerin is kind of the classic version of this. I still think that maybe there's something there with the fullbacks, like the absence of White. As good as Timber's been, especially defensively, the absence of White, I think, is a bit of a problem because those first seasons when Arsenal were getting into the title race, he was often that guy who could make that last minute run into the back post. And I think Calafiori is meant to do that, but he's got quite a lot of shots this season. But having one fullback who's going to be the extra runner, I think is necessary when you've got one of these fullbacks who really is like a centre back. It doesn't quite feel like the balance has quite been found yet. So maybe as the season goes on, we see more Nketiah or we see more White once he's fit again. Maybe that helps here. But it was positive at least that in this game, Arsenal were able to pile on pressure against a good team away from home in a way they haven't been able to in the past. Was it actually good? I wouldn't go that far. But was it kind of promising?
In the right direction.
Yeah, in the right direction. And Gyökeres, after several games of 0 shots, 6 shots against Newcastle, you got to take what you can get. Plus, actually, I would really say that his link-up play looked vastly improved in this game. Like, he had some really good moments. So I don't know. It kind of comes down to that question, right? Which is like, do you want to be an amazing attacking side with a slightly ropey defense? or do you want to be an amazing defensive side with a slightly dodgy attack? Like we're going to see that run out again this season, I guess. Is there anyone else you want to look at before we get out of here? I think that we've covered like genuinely
every Premier League team in existence.
Yeah, like 13 Premier League teams. So you can't argue that you didn't get your money's worth. Like Neel, I quite often like take ideas from what I see you tweeting and bring them in here. You know, like I think that thing about Burnley defending in the block against Liverpool, I think I may have originally seen that on your Twitter account. What is your Twitter account? Where can people find it?
Yep, you can head over to @ShilatNeel on Twitter or on Blue Sky. And yes, you will see such thoughts as Burnley's low block defending, followed immediately by such thoughts or observations as what is going on in the Lithuanian Cup final. What a game that was, by the way.
Like when you say there are games that you tweet about that I'm like, if I didn't know you, I would assume this was like ice hockey. You know, where it is like the second division of Estonia. I'm like, oh, this is ice hockey, right? But yeah, I highly recommend Neel. Neel's a great follow. And thank you very much to all of you for following us. We really appreciate you listening to us. Please do leave us a 5-star review if you're listening to us on a podcast app. And if you're here on YouTube, then drop us a like and please do subscribe. Let us know what you'd like to see us cover over the coming weeks. We're starting to get real stories now. We're starting to get real numbers too. And if you'd like to see us do some player deep dives, I think that's something that we'd like to bring you this season as well. There are definitely some players who are proving kind of interesting after a few matches. So I'm quite intrigued to see what's going on there. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.